In my hand is the future of desktops. No, really, this is an absolute powerhouse of a workstation. This is the SER5 Max by our friends at BeeLink. It is rocking some very powerful hardware in spite of its small form factor. So it has a Ryzen 7 5800H series processor, 16 gigabytes of DDR4 memory in a dual channel configuration. We also have integrated AMD Radeon graphics with a 8-core GPU. Additionally, we also have Wi-Fi 6 and Bluetooth 5.2 standards. It also has a reasonably large 1 terabyte solid state drive, and we are going to do a full-fledged review of this workstation to see if it has the power you need for a daily work case and so much more. So let's get into it. Starting with packaging, the SER5 Max comes in a fairly petite box, which is appropriate for such a small product. Now, once you go through the pleasure of removing all that protective packaging and then opening up the box and moving some more protective packaging, here you have it, the SER5 Max in all its glory. And boy, is this thing portable. But more on that in a quick minute. Past that, you have a 19-volt adapter here, which is the one that basically powers up this powerhouse. And then you'll also notice have some additional accessories like a HDMI to HDMI cable and a micro HDMI cable as well. At nearly 5 inches wide and about 1.5 inches tall, this is an extremely desktop. Its portable form factor is only reinforced by the fact that it has a total weight of right around 1.1 pounds, making it very lightweight. Now, starting with the top side, you'll notice you have a nice fabric finish that's very aesthetically pleasing, and then some basic branding. On either side of the desktop, you have air intake grills. These can be easily mistaken for an onboard speaker system, but we do not have that here. With the front side, you'll notice you have a few ports. So you have two USB-A super speed ports, a basic USB Type-C port, and then of course the power button. Now on the rear side, you have a lot more happening. So you have the DC port for power, you have a HDMI 2.0 port, a DisplayPort 1.4. You'll also notice you have two more USB-A ports, but only one of them is super speed while the other is a basic 2.0 port. And then you have a gigabit RJ45 port as well. And you'll also notice directly above that, you have the air exhaust vent. It would have been nice to have at least one more USB Type-C port, but I/O port diversity isn't bad when you consider how small this thing is. Now at the bottom side is where you have the AMD branding, some rubber grips to keep it in place as well. Before I move on to performance, let's just quickly talk about upgradability. So the bottom portion of the desktop is entirely removable past 4 screws and this cool little tab, it opens right up. Inside firstly, you'll find a SATA slot, so you can add a 2.5-inch internal hard drive here in case you want to expand storage. And they even gave a dedicated cooling fan for it, which is quite thoughtful. Now, past that, in terms of upgradability, you do have 2 fully upgradable DDR4 RAM slots up to a maximum of 64 gigabytes. You can also upgrade the Wi-Fi card, which is nice, and you also have a PCIe 3.0 slot, which is preoccupied with the M.2 SSD that we have included, but it's nice to know you can upgrade that as well. Alright, so let's talk about performance. Our Ryzen 7 5800 chip is no joke, which means day-to-day activities like web browsing, watching 4K content on the internet, or even doing general productivity like word processing, for example, are going to be a total breeze for this machine. You can even do super demanding activities like multi-layer 4K video editing on DaVinci Resolve, for example, and you'll find for the most part you'll have a pretty fluid experience. I was able to add up to 3 layers before I noticed any sort of visible frame drops, and even then they were far and few for the most part. Now, of course, render times aren't going to be as fast as they would with a machine that has a dedicated GPU, for example, but the workflow is not only possible, it works exceptionally well. Having more RAM would further improve that. Now, gaming here is what really took me by surprise. Initially, I had expectations of this being equivalent to a very casual gaming machine, but I'd say it's more casual plus level, because like games like Fortnite, for example, which are very well optimized, can run at a comfortable 70 plus frames per second on upper medium settings. They look quite nice at 1080p, and I honestly had no complaints seeing how smooth it's running. Even most demanding games like Doom Eternal, for example, that are heavily GPU orientated, were running at a healthy 60 plus frames per second on Doom's equivalent of medium settings. I was not expecting this. This game has no business running as well as it does at 1080p that we're seeing on this machine, it is very impressive. Now, even games that are not as well optimized and also put a fair bit of strain on both CPU and GPU, like Age of Empires 4, for example, tend to run well enough. I was able to run them at medium settings and consistently get around 40 frames per second, which again isn't bad. Now, granted, it's not going to be as good of an experience as you would with a dedicated GPU, but again, this is well beyond casual gaming in my honest opinion. Thermals are kind of weird, so since you have a 54 watt processor here, I was expecting this machine to get somewhat hot, and it really doesn't. So the average surface temperature will kind of sit around 35 degrees Celsius under sustained peak loads, which again really isn't all that bad. The key problem here is the fan noise. Even though you have a single fan setup, it spends like 90% of its time pretty much full RPM if you're doing anything more than staring at your desktop. On top of that, it can produce noise levels around 60 decibels at maximum speeds, which is very audible. So much so that you're better off pretty much keeping your headphones on for the duration of using this machine because again, it's very loud, and that's definitely one thing that I did find to be somewhat uncomfortable. Starting at about $420 for the cheapest configuration, going all the way up to $490, this is a fairly affordable desktop. And keep in mind, you're not getting some chump hardware here, you're getting top-end H-series processors from Ryzen combined with some pretty hefty RAM. Now, of course, the value proposition here truly comes from its signature feature, which is the ultra compact form factor. Whether you're trying to keep this desktop in tight spaces or carry it around with you, the portability here is a sweet selling point. But the best part is that you don't have to compromise power or performance, both in CPU and GPU activities. As we saw throughout the review, this is a very capable desktop that arguably punches well above its grade. In fact, I would go as far as saying that it outclasses some full-size desktops in a similarly priced category. Now, of course, the only drawback here really is the fact that you have audible fan noise, but other than that, there's so much to love about this computer, including its high degree of upgradability. If you're interested in a portable powerhouse such as the SER5 Max, I can wholeheartedly endorse it for all its great qualities and lack of problems for the most part. Let me know what you think of the SER5 Max. If you're interested in getting one, I will leave links in the video description below. It's definitely an awesome product that's at least worth checking out. As always, if you enjoyed the content, make sure you like this video and subscribe to this channel. It genuinely helps me grow and means the world to me. Catch you in the next one.